Hello, everybody. I just made an executive decision, which is quite funny because I'm going to be talking about decisions tonight. Geordie just started growling, and I thought, no, I am going to avoid getting stressed. And so he has been retired to another room. So, welcome to my third Zoom. I have been challenging myself to get out there more this latter half of the year, should I say. And these three Zooms that I have done have been inspired uh, by the feedback that I've had from people with my recent success at WFF. I had some great feedback, and obviously I was super excited. Uh, and I really wanted to dig into sharing some of the stuff that I use myself and I share with my clients that has enabled me to pull myself together and take on a challenge that, way back in 2016, I think it was. It was just out there. It was totally off the charts, something that I would never, ever have dreamt of doing. And, the first week I shared with you that idea of how you talk to yourself and the questions that you ask yourself, how is this self-talk serving me? And that was something that I was doing the morning of the show. I was questioning my sanity. And that idea that you ask if it's serving you, you accept and acknowledge that it's okay to feel the way you do, and you do it anyway. Just get on with it. And it's very simplistic, just not easy to do. And, the secret that I was sharing with you is that it's all about practice. You're not going to suddenly be able to do it. But the key is that first step, that small step, and then noticing that you are making progress. Last week, I talked about opportunities and shared some opportunities in my life and very small ones, that I have connected to long-term outcomes that have been pretty neat for me. And that idea that these opportunities are everywhere, and it is kind of like being open to them, but also recognizing that you do need to look for them. They are sometimes disguised as nasty surprises. And, we know all that corny stuff about look for the opportunity in the chaos or in the pain. And, I met with my membership group last night, and we were talking about that. Sometimes the last thing you want to hear is, somebody giving you sound advice about, what can you learn from this when when you're grieving, or when you're at the end of your tether, or when you're sitting in a corner just feeling like the world's against you. So there's all this stuff that we can ponder and we can think about. But what I'm really encouraging people to do is to start using it, because I know, and I bought a book the other day and I was laughing to myself because I thought, it's like I've got the books and now everything's going to be okay. You've got to actually open it and read it, but that's still not enough. You've got to start applying it. And I have been very aware of that in my life, of being that serial study person, or that serial qualification chaser. Just get the next one and then everything will be fine. And, if I just got that qualification, then I could do this. And for me, something that came out of my training through the States was that idea that just take messy, uncomfortable action just start, because there is somebody out there with less money, less time, less qualifications, less skill, possibly even not very likable. And they're doing it. I can see somebody waving her finger in here. And I'm not talking about you. And this is what we need to remind ourselves of. You know, we're waiting for that perfect moment, that perfect time. And tonight I wanted to share more about decision making. I did a post today and I talked about, you know, decision fatigue. And I've heard a lot about that with some of the women that I have worked with. You know, I relate to this. You know, I'm over making decisions. I can make decisions, perfectly capable of making them. I'm just over it. And the thing that I find really fascinating is often the reason we've got to that point of decision fatigue is because we have wasted, and I say wasted, so much time and energy on smaller decisions that don't deserve the time and energy that we give them. And I think it was Einstein, who apparently had a closet full of the same t-shirts. And his rationale for that was that decision making about what to wear was not important. He wanted to save his brain power and his thinking power for the more important things in life. And I thought, oh my God, that is so true. My friend and I, years ago, way back when, we used to talk about clothing crisis. When you were dressing to go out or going to work and suddenly everything is wrong, right? And I would laugh because I'd have all my clothes spread out all over the room and I still couldn't make a decision. And I thought, is that an appropriate use of my time and energy and my thinking power? So that one really resonates with me, that clothing crisis, that trying to decide what to wear, what to do. And, you know, recently over the last probably 6, maybe less, 5 years, I have felt a lot of pressure, and I felt I've made a lot of decisions that have been pretty critical and life-changing for me. And then I thought about, I've also made some smaller decisions that have led to critical life-changing decisions. And where was my time and energy best spent? You know, was it in the smaller ones or was it in the bigger ones? And I thought, well, actually, unless you actually go back and dig into it and analyze it, it's not easy to decide, because sometimes, and I've shared this with you guys before, you know, that decision to pick up the phone and call somebody, it's very insignificant, very small. And yet it might lead to a job opportunity, it might lead to a relationship, it might lead to a fun outing, a great connection. It might just lead to a lovely conversation. So, you know, do we say, oh, well, I'm going to stop making those sort of decisions. I'm going to, you know, only save my energy for, like, you know, do I move house? Do I change my relationship kind of thing? So, you know, how we decide which decisions deserve our time and energy is another point worth reflecting on. Because remember, the whole basis of, from my perspective as a behavior analyst, the whole basis of deciding whether a behavior is a problem or not is when it starts to interfere with daily functioning. So for me, potentially, the problem around trying to decide what to wear is that decision-making process could become a problem because it's interfering with my ability to get up, get out, interact with other people, whatever. And therefore I would be going, you know, can I adapt, or can I change? Can I modify this behavior in this situation because it's not actually serving me? But the thing that I wanted to share was this idea of, what strategies do we use to start to assess our decision making and to streamline it. I mean, the quote that I put up there was, it was something about, successful people automate decisions. And I thought, well, how do you automate your daily life decisions? It might be easy to automate decisions, regarding a business, for example. But there are ways of doing it. And as Einstein so cleverly decided, we can look at our environment and what we have access to and how we structure it to make decision making easier. So setting yourself up for success to make better decisions or to make decisions more easily, like the meal, the food one was a classic. People say to me, being an adult seems to be constantly deciding what you're going to eat for the next 60 years. And I mean, I've nailed that one just by doing meal prep, right? And I can't imagine trying to decide what to eat every day. It would drive me nuts. So the automation side of it is looking at how you can set yourself up for success so that whatever you're doing that used to involve a lot of oohing and ahhing now becomes automatic. You go to the fridge, you get out your prepped food and you eat it, cook it, whatever. You don't sit there and ooh and ah and look through the fridge and then think, oh, I'll just pop up to Countdown and grab a ready meal or whatever. And the power in that is you then have a structure in place that enables you to be more successful in making correct decisions. And when I say correct, right for you. Now, I have shared with some of my clients before, and probably you guys have heard some of this, which is response effort, making it easy to do the right thing so that it's not hard. And that's tied in with setting yourself up for success and arranging your environment to be successful. So the tip around that, and this has enabled me, for example, let's relate it back to the fitness, to be able to get up, get out and get to the gym, or get up, get out, get my work done and then get to the gym. And I say this grinning because it doesn't always work, but it does set me up to be more likely to be successful than not. And that is limiting the opportunities, or the choices, should I say, not opportunities, the choices that are available to you. So and this is actually a strategy, and those of you who've worked with children will probably recognize it. This is a strategy for teaching children how to choose. The more choice, the longer, the more painful, the more agonizing the decision becomes. Now, anyone who's got Netflix will understand this, right? I mean, it's, yeah, scrolling for hours and thousands of things to choose from, and it takes forever to make a decision. The first time that I ever really noticed that for sure, realized that this selection process becomes so much easier, is when I was eating out. And I don't eat out very often. I love it. But I noticed that I could make a decision really, really quickly, because back in the day when I was eating out more, vegetarian meals, there was usually one, if you were lucky, two options, right? Whereas the people that I was with, which was often mum and dad or my brother or, a family or friends, they've got this. And the waitress would come say, are you ready to order? Yeah. Everybody else took forever. And I suddenly thought then, yeah, this is so easy. I've got this choice or this choice. Done. So often less is best. So if you're noticing that you are struggling with day-to-day decision making about comparatively basic stuff, look at the options that you have available and go, do I need to restrict the choices that I have? If I'm struggling with what to wear, do I need to put a whole heap of clothes to one side and just go, okay, I've got this and this and this, and just experiment, get curious. Does that make my life easier? It's definitely made my life easier. I mean, I do tend to live in either horse gear or gym gear for a start. But I have found, yeah, if I start introducing too many, oh, I could do this, oh, I could do that, I'm just faffing around and I'm wasting time that is not necessarily fun. Like, it could be fun if you're just playing, trying things on. But if that's not where you want to put your focus, it becomes a drain of your decision-making energy. The other thing that I thought of, and I love this, and this comes from Mel Robbins, which is you start to restrict the time available to make the decision. And this isn't always appropriate, but the classic time that it is appropriate, for example, is lying in bed going, oh, I can't be bothered to get up. I don't feel like going to the gym, or I don't feel like getting up and starting work, or I don't feel like doing this. And her one is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, up. You just do it. You just get up. You decide. You restrict the time. You don't lie there for ages. Oh, well, I could just have another, I could snooze, I could do this, I could do that. You just start to be more aware of what is going on when you're trying to decide or trying to make these simple daily decisions. So we've got the look at your environment, restrict your options, and look at your time. The other thing that kicked in for me when I was thinking about making decisions that have enabled me to take up opportunities and to do things that are aligned with where I want to go and what I want to do is coming back, as always, to your values. Now, I was talking to a client today, and then I was talking to somebody else this afternoon about this in terms of accessing reinforcement and feeling good in the moment. Be aware that the majority of the time we are making decisions based on in the moment emotions and feelings. And, the behavior analyst in me goes, pain or pleasure? Is this painful? Is this pleasurable? Do I keep it up? Do I stop it? That's a simple decision. The trouble is, that decision, if it's applied to something pretty big, like a relationship or a job, we will make a decision based on how we feel in the moment, which over time may not prove to be a decision that is actually aligned with our values and what we believe in and our bigger picture, our bigger goal. And it's closely tied to sooner, smaller sooner, larger later. I don't know if you've heard of that little story. The marshmallow test, the children given a marshmallow and they had to look at it. They were told they couldn't eat it. And the experimenter left the room, but he said, if it's still here when I get back, you'll get another one. And they were disguising this as, he wasn't really leaving the room for any particular reason. What they were trying to see was what strategies the children would, or if they would employ any strategies to resist eating the marshmallow. And the fascinating thing about this is it's a smaller reward now, like I eat the marshmallow now and I get the pleasure now, or if I can delay that, I'm going to get an even bigger reward because I'm going to get another one. And, we say, oh, it's a pretty simplistic experiment, yeah, right. What's that got to do with life? It's got everything to do with life, because this experiment carried on. It was a longitudinal study, and it followed those kids through to adulthood. And they did, they did lots of analysis of their socioeconomic status, all those indices of happiness and blah, 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 which some of it was critical, but they said the one measure that you couldn't deny, you can't argue with, was the success from a financial point of view. Generally, they were happier, but they said, that can be up and down. But they were all the ones that had delayed gratification, that had saved the marshmallow and got two, were financially far better off than the ones who took it now. And, it's interesting. It's interesting because what it tells us is that, if we can look at life and look at our behaviors and look at our decision making through that lens of what's better for me in the long term as well as the now, because it's not always relative, it's not always true, we are more likely to get what we want and to be and live the life that we want. But if we are making a decision frequently, if we're making a decision in the moment based on our pain and how uncomfortable it is, we could easily end up making decisions that later on do not actually pan out for the best for us. And I'm sure you've all got examples of that. And the example that I was sharing with a client, or the discussion that I was sharing with a client today, for example, is being in a very challenging breakup situation. And she wants to get out of town, get out of Dodge. And we were talking about that idea of making that decision based on what's right for her versus, I just want to get out of town because I can't stand this situation. Because it would also involve other decisions such as leaving her job, selling her house, lots of other things that may not necessarily be aligned with what's important to her and what is going to be best for her in the long haul. So those sort of ways of viewing making decisions become more about being strategic as well as trying to remove some of the emotion around these decisions. And I did a workshop ages ago on applying game theory to making decisions. And I can remember saying in the workshop, I wasn't trying to minimize major decisions and make fun of them by referring to game theory. Is actually not funny at all. It's incredibly mind-blowing, but I was simplifying it. And what I was saying, or what I was implying, was the more we can remove the emotion from the process, the more likely we are to make an informed decision or a values-based decision rather than a heat of the moment, reactive response to a situation. And it is not easy. It is not easy. And funnily enough, some of you will know that I'm kind of celebrating vicariously because a client of mine has just, who came to me for behavioral support and mindset coaching, has just won Miss Universe figure in Malaysia. And we have had some fascinating conversations around decision making because she was regretting her decision to go. And it's a huge, huge commitment to travel overseas, just the financial investment alone. And she was saying to me at one point, I want out. She said, I'm just looking to get out. I don't want to go. So I have been coaching her from the mindset angle and looking at how she can talk to herself in a different way. And when she told me about her result, I sent her a message and I said, "Are you glad you went?" Because there's an example of, if she'd made that decision based on how she felt in the moment, very, very different outcome. And that is where you want to be drawing your attention to. I felt that bad. And I said this to her, you need to put this up there, go back and reflect on it. I felt so bad, I was going to quit. And I'm now on the other side and I see I can get that bad and still come out the other side. And I think if you can start to make those connections and see that decision making can be less emotional, go back to your values. What's important to me? Is this aligned with who I am? And is it getting me closer to where I want to be? And just start to think of it from the point of view of how, again, that question, how is this serving me? You're then in a better place to make decisions that are going to work out for you, as opposed to decisions that are made because you just feel really uncomfortable. And I cannot count how many times I have been in that situation, where you just go, and I'm in an interesting situation right now, and I have actually made the decision. I have made a values-based decision that I can no longer be in this situation. And it has taken time because it has been a process of making lots of values-based decisions along the way. Because I could have left, I could have quit a lot sooner, but I would not have felt right because I would have been leaving that situation because it was too painful. Now I am leaving this situation because I no longer want to be around people who behave the way they're behaving and who see me in the way that they see me. And I have questioned and I've said to myself, why would you remain in an environment with people that do not see you as you really are, who believe somebody else over you, despite your behavior and despite this other person's behavior? And this comes back to that time and energy again. And I have wasted far too much time and way too much emotional energy in this particular situation. And I can see now that this is an example of that decision fatigue, because it's just been going on and on and on. And initially, I could see it was important why I did what I did, but now it is something that I have started to go, this is not aligned with my values anymore, and I have done what I needed to do. And a lot of it, and this is another sort of digging deep, a lot of it is accepting that you have done the best that you can in that situation. The outcome is not what you want. I done a lot of, not that I'm a great fan of the whole ego thing. It doesn't sit with the behavior. It doesn't sit with but it's true, isn't it? It's that feel good. I feel that part of me feels like I'm giving up. Part of me feels like I have not had the last word. And part of me goes, why is that important to you? Why is it important to you? Why do you feel the need to make or try and make these people understand? And again, full circle, time and energy wasted. And if we go back to the, the clothing example, I just go, yeah, there's way too much all over the floor now. I'm out of here. So decision making has definitely been a critical part of me getting to where I am today, making some decisions that were incredibly painful. I mean, some of you will know that. Some of you have made your own painful decisions around the last 4 years. I've also made some financial decisions that have been incredibly painful and pretty scary. And again, I have been challenging myself to see it from the point of view of that what's being done now versus how is this going to impact me later. And in the short term, it was a lot of money to invest in my training. In the long term, it's paid back. And I can remember at the time thinking, oh, that's so much money. And then I thought, yeah, but the idea is that you're investing money to make money. You're not just sort of investing money, or sorry, buying a product that's not going to bring you a return. I was buying into accessing knowledge that was going to enable me to then start a business. And that part of the decision-making process really challenged me, because at the back of my mind, I was still going, I've just spent this money. And I had to reframe that, because the whole decision was a larger later one. In the short term, it was painful because I was giving away this money, but the long term was, this is going to come back to me because I am gaining a skill that I am going to be using, and this is ongoing, this is starting me on that journey. And that is incredibly hard to do. And those of you that are into the law of attraction and more of the airy stuff that we are beginning to realize may not be as airy after all, is pretty deep. That allowing and that idea of flow and making a decision and then letting go of it. Somebody I follow, should I say, going off on a tangent, Cody Sanchez on Instagram had a fantastic interview with I think he was a billionaire, just out there. And she said to him, so what's the difference between you and the average person, most of us? And he said, it's really simple. And I was going, we were waiting on the edge of our seats. And he said, I make decisions really quickly. And she said, okay, so what do you mean by that? And he said, well, most people are given a situation where they have to make a decision. And he said they will, be on the internet, they'll be doing this, they'll be doing that. He said, by the time that person has made the decision, he said, I've made about 10, made 10 mistakes potentially, but I am now 10 times further along than they are. So there's this challenge within that decision-making process to actually keep making them, not to get stuck in that decision fatigue, especially with decisions around, like from a business point of view. And, some of you, I've been talking with a few of you about, you're doing your own ventures, you're starting things up. And my advice to people now, because I can say this because I'm that much further along and I have had hysterics calling myself out on it, is we're trying to do it perfect. We're waiting for the stars and moons to be aligned and to get the right setup, the right equipment. And along with that idea of making a decision around, values-based decision, is this right for me, which is fair enough. there is that time to go, I just need to make a decision now, which comes back to the time. Don't spend too long on it. Just make it, learn from it, make another one, learn from it, make another one. And that was his single bit of feedback on the difference between how he got traction, got going, while most people are still scrabbling around at ground zero, basically. And I think that sits in with that whole idea of the, you know, the quicker you get moving, you move into the realm of you leave the little stuff behind. I love that idea. And it was listening to Dean Graziosi talking about, you know, suddenly when you're on the next level, when you're moving, and I say moving up, which sounds a little bit, you know, hierarchical, but I think you get what I mean. You're moving through the levels like a game, gaming. People seem to get that. He said suddenly all those things that you used to fuss around or worry about or get uptight about become, I don't care, because I've got other stuff to get on with. And I thought that is pretty critical, isn't it? Which comes back to, are we wasting time and energy on stuff that doesn't really matter? Like, what are we going to wear? So lots going on there. But I think if I can leave you with anything that is kind of the tip for me that has made the biggest difference for me is look at where you're putting your time and energy and which decisions are holding you back or causing you to get fatigue, so that you're then exhausted and unable to make decisions that really matter. And they may not be, it may not be, you know, big and huge financial decisions or relationship issues, but they are big in terms of what potential they have to take you down the path of something different. And I mean, going back to, and we laughed about this last night, but going back to we met up, some of us in my membership group met up to go and see a performance by one of the girls' husbands. And that for me was one of those examples of making a decision that was small but significant, because it brought us together. It brought us together doing something that I don't think any of us, although Anna would have done, but the rest of us wouldn't have done if it hadn't been part of a group activity and a reason to get together. And it's those sort of little decisions which are actually bigger decisions in so many ways. So lots to think about. Again, just my thoughts, but I would love to open up the floor if anyone's got any questions or got any thoughts around making decisions. Anybody, feel free to unmute and contribute. Oh my gosh, it rhymes.
Hello.
Hi, Christy.
Hi, Kate. Thanks. So that was just interesting. Yeah, definitely a lot of things were ticking in my mind of how that relates to lots of things, and yeah, my present situation and past and future. But what I was thinking of is, you know, sometimes your capacity to make a decision and like your capacity for risk and how much, like say, whether you're depleted on energy, like how you're feeling in your health, or like how risky you feel like it is a financial decision as well. I think that's when we deliberate more, when we feel like, you know, if we're starting a business, we've only got like this small amount and we kind of try to do things sometimes smaller. Well, that was just for me, that was came up, but I was just thinking how that again can make you just a way that influences your decisions, if that feeling of like lack, or whether it is actually a genuine lack in some area of your life, can limit or just change your capacity to make a clear decision. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Christy. Yeah. And I think with one thing that the American guys would say, because they are very good at sales and talking about how you present whatever it is you're offering. And he said, people will have a list of excuses about why they're not going to invest in something or put money aside. But he said, yeah, you do need to say to people, if this is taking food off your table, then it's a no-no, right? So sometimes we're scared of things just because we are like you say, risk averse. And it's finding that line between, is this being risk averse, or is it literally that I'm going to be carted off to debtor's prison if I do this? And
finding that line, yeah.
It is finding that line, because sometimes the best stories, right? You Google them, you Google a lot of people who are very successful, and they will say, Robert Kiyosaki is one of them. He was over $1 million in debt. He was sleeping in his car, and he said, there was no way I was going to work myself out of that debt. And he said, I knew it. I knew I had to. That was so much pressure on him to be successful. And I mean, I'm not advocating that everybody goes out and does something like that, but he said that got him being creative. So it's knowing what's going to leverage, what leverage is going to work for you. Is what I wanted trying to say. Because I've often said to clients, for example, most of the people that come to me do not need to be guilt tripped into taking action. Whereas sometimes there are people out there, they need to kick their ass, right, and get into gear, excuse my French. But most people that I have come to me actually need the reverse. So they need to leverage off taking care of themselves in order to be there for other people. So you just have to find out what's going to work for you. And digging deep, what is the real barrier? Is it money, or is it actually fear of failure? Because you do have to, very few businesses, and I mean, I'm preaching to myself now, very few businesses just go from, oh, I invested 100,000 or whatever, I got all this knowledge, and then gradually I got more clients, and then I started making even more money, and now I'm really successful. I invested some money, I lost lots of money, nothing worked out. I had a bank loan of 50 grand. Then I went for a year, and then something else happened. And it's that squiggle, we see that diagram of that. It's not a gradual. And so going back to what that billionaire said, the sooner we start making failures and getting over it and getting on, the sooner we will get to where we want to be. But we're still not going to be where we want to be because we're on a path and it's never ending. And
I think it's that failure thing that you clicked on there, that probably in any of those areas that you feel like you'd failed too easily, so you potentially whether it be financially or confidence.
Exactly, yeah. And today I saw, and it was a post by Dean, and he said, if you knew you were 15 failures away from success, how quickly would you want to get through those failures? And I thought, oh my God, that is so true.
So true.
Hey, Kim, just quickly, you know what? You sent me a video once of somebody who don't even remember their name, but they just reframed the narrative of how the story we tell ourselves about what making money is. Like, like if you make a lot of money, you must be bad because you're stealing from the poor type of thing. And if you're virtuous, you're more virtuous if you're poor and you do things for nothing. And reframing that. Do you remember who that was?
Yes,
because man, I tried that, and that's how come I asked for more money and for the job that I just pitched for, And I was still tentative about it. And I was like, I know it's a lot of money, but that's what it takes for me to turn up. And they're like, oh, that's fine. Click. You know, they didn't even twitch. They didn't even twitch. And then now I look at how much their executives earn and I'm like, shit, I should have doubled it. Hey,
Love it, Anna.
but
What?
it's true. So you
Yeah.
just have like, it's not, I have, and I try and constantly think about that person, whomever it was. But that's what I'm telling myself, the story and the narrative and how we feel about money.
Mm.
Hey, and you know, like it's not a bad thing to ask for what we deserve.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to train in myself. I think it's I think I think it's working. I don't know. Ask me in a year, everybody. When I'm in
Well,
the streets.
that's pretty exciting though, because funnily enough, when you sent that message through, I was thinking, oh, she's done it. She's done it. But again, you could apply that same principle to not just money, to any sort of success.
Yeah, totally.
A game changer for me, and I shared this with Amber when she was prepping for Worlds, for the universe, and I said it's that question, why not me? Why can't it be me?
Yeah.
Which is another decision, isn't it? I'm just going to decide that it is going to be me.
I don't know what the switch was that something just flicked and
Mm.
suddenly all those years, is it all those years of working and doing and honing our skills that suddenly we finally believe in ourselves, or is it, I don't know, I'm not really sure what that is, but I I think we put I think I put too much you know, monetary value on it means X, you know, when in fact I think we're all bloody stars in our own, you know, hey. However, anyway.
Yeah.
Shh.
And often, like this guy said, the only difference, well, there is so little difference between successful and unsuccessful people. And as he said, it is that ability to make a decision and get cracking.
Is that
Um,
genetic or just something we can train ourselves?
well, this is the conversation, Anna, training ourselves. Yeah, because we have been conditioned, I think we've definitely been conditioned to focus on the stuff, the minutiae. As Tim Ferriss always talk, I love that word, minutiae.
Yeah.
You know,
Research.
we're worried about the stuff that doesn't matter. And if you go back to making decisions that serve you, another one that's closely linked up to that is this idea of deciding, do you value your time over money? And a client of mine who's been struggling just said it, like, I didn't cue her into it at all, but she said, time is running out. You don't get it back. And successful people realize that. And that is why, and I think I've shared this with you, they will leverage their money to get more time. They will buy time. So they will invest in a course, they'll invest in training, get me to where I want to be now, and I will pay you X amount of money to get there. Whereas there'll be people go, oh, wow, it's a lot of money. Oh, no, well, oh dear, I haven't got that. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I haven't really. And then they'll say they haven't got the time or the money. And I mean, I'm making light of it, right? But if we actually called ourselves out and said, every time I'm oohing and ahhing over this, and I was talking to my niece the other day, she's 15, no, yeah, she's 15. And even she brought it up and she said, it's like time is going through, through the sand timer. And I go, oh my God, she's 15 and she's aware of that. Bless her. But yeah, the minute you start valuing your time over money, you're I believe you are going to start making different decisions. And now, it took me years to get past that, the 4-hour working week. I read that book in 2006, right? And where are we now? 20 years later. Far out. It doesn't matter about the information. It matters about the application. And I used to, oh yeah, Timmy's right. He's right. But there I was trading my time for money. As long as I was in the office, I could do crap all, they would pay me. And I had this argument years ago when I was lecturing in, this sounds really dodgy, lecturing in K Road. I was lecturing in K Road. And I would drive in from Welsford to K Road, which is nothing now, but it was back then, and mark papers in the office. And I said to my manager, I said, look, could I do this from home? And he said, no. I did manage to wangle, I think, one day in the end. But I thought, so I would just be there all day, spend all day marking them. Whereas when I was at home, I could do them in 2 hours. But it was because he was buying my time. That's what he saw it as, I've paid for you. You will sit in this office and you will, yeah. So how did we get onto that? Very interesting about value. But I think the decision making, as Christy pointed out, in terms of risk, if you are risk averse, yes, you are going to be making very different decisions, which is why I would challenge, if you're struggling with that, I would be challenging you to go back to your values and say, how is this serving me? Which value is actually being threatened because I'm worried about the what ifs? Like, for instance, if you had independence, or I don't know, just say as a value, you might be going, well, me not making a decision about this, and this is actually threatening my ability to be an independent decision maker. I don't know. But you start to go, yeah, so I'm actually not living my values. And how can I mitigate some of that risk just practically and not getting emotionally connected to it? The closest I can identify, and this, I don't know if this helps, Christy, is, and it would have been what do we call pre and post COVID? It would have been pre-COVID. My cottage was falling apart, basically. If I didn't do something, I would lose it. And that was when I spent a lot of money for me to get it back up and running. A friend helped me out, which was huge, halved what I would have spent. But I can remember lying in bed, it just like, I'm hemorrhaging money. It's just like, it was, and I just go, okay. And I did a Tim Ferriss. And I said, what is the worst possible outcome of this situation? And he calls it the worst case scenario. And he says, talk about it. Put it out there, because often it is not as bad as you think it is, because your imagination runs crazy. But also in the act of verbalizing it, you then go, well, that's hardly likely to happen because blah, 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 blah. And so I just found myself going, well, the worst case scenario is I have a house to sell, which isn't it's a pretty good situation to be in. And that just instantly changed my decision making. I was very fortunate to be doing it with somebody who was super confident until the end. And he said to me at the end, he said, Farah, he used other language. He said, there were times where I thought we were never, ever going to get this done. And I said to him, I am so glad you never told me that, because I was borrowing his confidence. I just thought he's done this before. But he thought it was just going to be, oh, take a bit of wallpaper off and he kept saying to me, oh my God, I'd hear various expletives as he was stripping down. turned into a major overhaul. But that worst case scenario can be quite good. So if you're thinking about from a point of view of putting money in, that stops you doing ridiculous things that people do, which is put their life savings into something. See, the only time I've ever invested in something that went pear-shaped, we had only put what we could afford to lose. It was painful to lose it. It was horrible to lose it. But it wasn't life-changing because we had done that worst case scenario. This goes belly up. We've learnt something. We've learnt what not to do. So that is why it then becomes values-based, because you start to go, well, I'm actually going to talk this through and not just go in guns blazing, because this seems like a good opportunity. So, but I'm not advocating to go get yourself $1 million in debt, Christine, start living in your car or anything. But yeah, it is definitely interesting to challenge those risks, because yeah, I've got a few little nigglies. Anybody else? Any thoughts? Is it useful? Is it helpful? Thanks heaps, guys. Thank you so much for joining. And have a fantastic weekend. And if you've missed the other ones, they're all up on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. So thank you. And watch this space. More to come.
Okay.
Have a great
Thank you.
weekend.
Thanks.
See you guys.
See ya.
Thanks, Kate. Bye.
Bye.